where clearly pollsters and reporters and everybody seems to have got it wrong. It has not been without controversy. The BJP, the Congress has formally complained to the Election Commission earlier today, talking about very slow counting and slow updates. With us, Yogendra ji, thank you, dhanyavad, namaskar. Uh, it doesn't look to me that anything is going to change. I think we can say that the BJP is going to form the next government. हम बड़े ध्यान से रुक के बोल because इतनी कुछ हो goes in complete contradiction to what was being suggested or forecast.
Absolutely, Barkha. There are no two opinions about it. You said many people got it wrong. I was certainly one of them. Although I didn't get into seat forecasting, but I've been saying for the last 1 month that Haryana is a one-sided election, that Congress is going to form the government, that the only question tsunami, I said, we don't know. I'll not get into that, but clearly Congress is coming to power. That has been proven plus or minus, but I don't think the overall result is going to change. We can be reasonably sure now that BJP is forming the government, even if they fall 1 or 2 short of majority. They have a couple of independent BJP rebels who would, of course, be there to support them. So it's BJP government. We can be reasonably sure, and which is to say, our assessment was wrong. Politics is a humbling experience, not only for politicians, but also for those who observe politics. This is one of those moments. I must have covered at least 100 elections by now, probably more. And I would remember this as one of those few where I was completely surprised. Even this morning, I was not. So let me begin by recounting why did I think that Congress was winning. 3 reasons. One, historically, BJP does worse in Vidhan Sabha election than it does in Lok Sabha election. This happened in 2014, in 19, and was expected to happen this time. In the Lok Sabha election, BJP and Congress were neck and neck. BJP going below that obviously meant BJP going out and Congress coming back to power. Empirically, I traveled with my colleagues like you do, and making sure that we don't speak only to the more articulate, making sure that we speak to the poorest, ordinary people, and came back with a clear impression that Congress was ahead, that compared to the Lok Sabha election, things were going in Congress's way and against the BJP. And all of this was consolidated by surveys and exit polls. And if you recall, not a single exit poll, even its lowest range, gave Congress anything less than 45 seats. So that's why there was this impression. But the elections are not decided by exit poll, and thank God for that. The elections are decided by the people. They vote. They tell us what is it that they want. So clearly, we made an error. I should say I made an error. There was clearly an undercurrent that we failed to cause. And let me try and anticipate, let me try and guess what that undercurrent must have been. All these are very initial thoughts because I cannot give you a confident explanation of what happened. If I had that explanation, I wouldn't have said what I said till yesterday. My guess is the following, that there was an undercurrent that many people who did not vote for Congress, or at least finally went and did not vote for Congress, said to us, when people like us spoke to them, they said, no, they will vote for Congress. Why is it that it happened? My guess is that these were people who had a certain apprehension, but who did not articulate that apprehension. And towards the end, in the voting day, that apprehension made all the difference. And the apprehension was this, that Congress government means a government of one family, one caste, and 1 or 2 districts. This is what the impression has been. The biggest charge against Mr. Huda's Congress government of the previous one was that ये तो रोहतक सोनीपत की सरकार थी, सिर्फ एक जाति के लिए चलती थी और उन्हीं की सब कुछ चलती. And the impression, as elections came closer, and the impression started gaining ground that Congress was coming back, it created an apprehension. Okay, so it's back to the rule of one particular community. Congress's internal squabbles did not help because they actually ended up accentuating the same apprehension. And BJP very successfully played on that. That may have made the difference of 2 or 3% vote, which is all that mattered in a close election like this. This is somewhat similar to what happened in Uttar Pradesh in 2022. Everyone thought Samajwadi Party was doing very well. BJP went around and told people, remember, if Samajwadi Party comes, ये यादव मुसलमान की सरकार बनेगी, फिर ये होगा, फिर वो होगा, and that stuck till 2024 when Akhilesh went out of his way to ensure that he was not seen to be leading one party of one caste rule. Something similar may have happened. This is the closest guess that I can make after 2 hours of soul searching.
Firstly, thank you for always being that rare person in public life who isn't afraid to acknowledge a mistake when you make one. That is still a rarity in our public discourse. So I always appreciate that. Um, this is a very interesting thing. ये बिहार में भी हमने देखा है, यूपी में भी हमने देखा है कि एक जात से associated, in this case the Jat community, and ek parivar, one caste community. You are saying that the domination of the Hoodas eventually proved to be not an advantage but a disadvantage for the Congress party at first glance, prima facie.
So it seems, and this is no secret that this was BJP's major plank. 35 was BJP's major political card in Haryana. Haryana mythically has 36 communities. And BJP's plank was कि 35 हमारे साथ एक हम परवाह नहीं करते. And remember, Haryana is had a Jat chief minister almost always, so ever since its formation. BJP was the party that brought in a non-Jat chief minister who ruled for 5 years. And when they wanted to replace him, and that was not a bad move, they again brought another non-Jat chief minister, which in Haryana is very rare. Mr. Naib Singh Saini was not one of the prominent Haryana leaders. He was not even one of the prominent BJP leaders. But BJP brought him in to send this message. So BJP's message has been quite clear. We are a party which dares to bring in non-Jats. We can, बाकी 35 समुदाय को हम साथ लेके चलेंगे और एक समुदाय जो करना है सोच लीजिए, फर्क नहीं पड़ता हमारे को. That's been an unspoken message of the BJP. That message helped BJP in the past. I was among those who thought that yes, they're trying it for the third time. इस बार नहीं चलेगा. But clearly it worked. BJP also made a couple of other moves, which were good moves. I thought it's too late, but clearly it worked. Number one, replacing Mr. Khattar, which was a very bold move, replacing a chief minister 6 months before the assembly election, less than 2 months before the parliamentary election, was a very, very risky move. They did it. And whenever I spoke to people, they said, "नहीं, Khattar से तो अच्छे हैं, I've said. Dynamic hai, kuch kar rahe hain." So they managed to erase that negativity associated with Mr. Khattar. Second, during the elections, during ticket distribution and campaigning, BJP took some very hard decisions. Their ticket distribution was focused solely on who can win, irrespective of their past reputation. So, say someone like Ramvilas Sharma, who was a tall BJP leader, one of the founders of Haryana BJP, he was denied ticket in his home constituency, denied ticket because he was not seen to be winning. Now, these are very bold decisions. BJP did that. I had considered all this and I said, these last minute things don't win you elections. But clearly we were wrong. And, this was an election, which was an election maybe of 1 or 2% votes. And these are things which make all the difference, that 1 or 2%. Congress may have been complacent, may not have done enough to counter this impression. And BJP managed to push this impression and did those additional things towards the end of the election that give them that 1 or 2 point advantage.
Now, this last sentence that you almost said in a throwaway way, कि Congress may have been complacent. आपने 2-3 चीजें कही हैं. एक तो the domination of one family, one caste could have been a big perception in some of the voters. Dusra, the BJP replaced Khattar, played on the mobilization of the non-Jat community. But you also said Congress may have been complacent. What do you think? I know hindsight is 2020, but what do you think were the signs of that complacency? जो अब लगता है अरे हमने कांग्रेस ने ये क्यों नहीं किया, ये कर सकते थे, वो क्यों नहीं किया, वो कर सकते थे.
I'm always a little wary of these things. As you said in a throwaway remark, hindsight is 2020. Once someone loses, then it's the easiest thing in the world is to say everything they did was wrong and everything someone else did was right, which of course doesn't happen. But in hindsight, the impression that everyone had was, some mythical figure of 72 seats to Mr. Huda was thrown around, that Mr. Huda managed to get 72 seats. And therefore, this is going to be, one person, one community Raj. Enough was not done to counter that. I'm sure all kinds of questions will be asked about candidate selection. But to my mind, these are all hindsight things. If the candidates had done well, everyone would have said, what smart choices. I personally do not think Congress made very poor candidate selection. Candidate selection was okay based on winnability, as it normally happens. BJP did slightly better, but then BJP always does slightly better in terms of candidate selection because they have slightly better inputs and so on. I don't think that's so true. And third was the question of Congress's infighting. Now, infighting is not a new thing in Congress. And I thought the number of rebel candidates that I had expected actually were not there. Initially, I thought there would be 30, 40 serious rebels this time. But there were actually only 20, and maybe after that, a little less. But the one thing that the Congress factional fight did was that it gave out a message, once again, which aligned with this Jat non-Jat theme, because the Shailajaji's dissatisfaction, which she, made public, didn't quite hide, that contributed to the same message. Those are things that may have cost Congress more than thought.
In this infighting, Sailaja, obviously, Dalit leader, a woman leader, very public about her disquiet. But at the very last moment, the Congress was able to get back Ashok Tawar, also another prominent Dalit leader. Do we impact? We don't actually know the breakup of how right now, at least right now, we need to study it a little more. एक तो वो कितना बड़ा फैक्टर था Sailaja's disappointment, because polls seem to suggest that she was not really seen as a big contender for chief minister. दूसरा मेरा सवाल है कि जो issues identify किए गए थे, आपने भी वो किए, जवान, किसान, पहलवान, संविधान, उन issues का क्या हुआ? Is it that in some pockets these were big issues? Is it that in terms of vote share there were big issues, but the conversion of that vote share into seats was where the Congress failed? How do you look at it?
I don't think Jawan and Kisaan issue did not work. Of course, it worked, and that's why Congress was in the race. Otherwise, Congress was not in the race. By 2019 parliamentary election, remember, Congress had only 28% votes. BJP had 58% votes. That's where the story begins. How does Congress crawl back? It crawls back partly because of the state assembly election impact, but largely because of the Kisaan Andolan. That there is at least the dominant peasant community is firmly disoriented, is firmly detached from, aligned with the BJP. That is what happened after the Kisaan Andolan. However, now we can say that it did not affect all the farming communities. It was largely the dominant farming community. It happened. Wrestlers' protest, in a sense, reinforced the same section. So perhaps what was happening was that a small section was being charged and recharged and even more intense. It was getting more and more intense, but it was not wide enough to affect the entire society. So these issues did matter. Unemployment was an issue. But did Congress look like a party which was going to solve the unemployment problem? Was Congress's manifesto promises there, did they actually reach the ground? I didn't get that sense. So yes, these issues mattered, and that's why BJP was in trouble. That's why Congress was in the game. But they did not. They were not so overwhelming as to rule out everything else. Similarly, on the issue of Shailajaji's protest and the Dalit issue, there could be a direct effect and there is an indirect effect. The direct effect would have been if her dissatisfaction had affected Dalit voters across the state. I don't think that. In fact, if you look at the results, in areas of Shailajaji's own influence, that is Sirsa, Fatehabad, and if you extend it right up to Ambala, in these areas, Congress has done relatively better. So it's not that in her areas, Congress has lost, but there was an indirect effect. The indirect effect was that this articulation by a Dalit leader reinforced everyone's sense that, look, one community is dominating. It reinforced the BJP narrative. That may have been an
Let's end with the impact on national politics. Let's be honest, had the BJP lost Haryana and the Congress had won, you perhaps would have been among those, and I would have been among those analyzing what does it mean for the brand of the Prime Minister after the Lok Sabha. Is something shifting? Hindi heartland में कुछ मुद्दे हैं जो जो अब बीजेपी को चोट पहुंचा रहे हैं. The corollary is also true. We must now ask, this is a state where the Prime Minister addressed only 4 rallies this time compared to 10 in 2014. Certainly his participation was more muted, but he still remains their biggest brand, unless we are now casting Haryana as a purely local election, which would be disingenuous of us, because if the result were the ulta, we would have definitely brought brand Modi into it. So अब brand Modi की जहां तक बात आती है, आप कैसे देखते हैं योगेंद्र जी?
You're absolutely right. We should anticipate what I would have said if Congress had won. And we don't need to anticipate because I actually said that even yesterday evening. I said voter of the Haryana election may not directly affect voters in Maharashtra and Jharkhand, but it would definitely affect the mood, the morale, and the momentum of these elections. So clearly, now that it's gone against the Congress, it is going to adversely affect. Once again, it will not affect the voters directly, but it will affect the morale, the mood, and the mood of the workers and the momentum of elections. Now the opposition, especially Congress, starts on a defensive note. And Congress would have to be even more careful now in keeping the allies and so on. So it is a setback. There's absolutely no doubt about it. No point denying that basic thing. About the Prime Minister, I had said earlier, and I would say again, this election in Haryana was not fought on his name. He was not the central person in this election. He was not there even on the holdings of BJP. So at the most, I would have said, well, Mr. Modi alone does not win you elections. That's quite clear. And BJP had conceded it. The same situation holds today. But obviously, that's not how the BJP would present it. They would like to present it as Mr. Modi's victory. This will be done in the evening. But we know the result. And if Congress had won, it would not have been Rahul Gandhi's victory. But clearly, that's not how the BJP would present it. It would be presented differently. That's the routine game of politics. But there's absolutely no doubt that BJP now starts the remaining Vidhan Sabha elections on a positive note. BJP now would wish to present the Lok Sabha setback as a one-point event, which has now been reversed. So much of the burden now shifts to Jharkhand and Maharashtra, and we need to watch the results very carefully.
Yashwant Deshmukh is joining us, but Yogendraji, I know you're on the tail end of our time with you, but stay as long as you you can. But just one
some
question
other
to you.
commitment. I would have loved to speak to Yashwant Bhai, but
ठीक है, we'll organize it another time. एक आपसे last comment मैं ले लूं अगर वो ये है कि आपने कहा कि if the BJP had lost, they would have not presented it as Modi's loss, and they will present it as Modi's wins. That's their politics. But in your understanding of the BJP's politics in the North Indian states, in what's loosely called the Hindi heartland, what does Haryana and the failure, as you called it, to read the undercurrent, what does it bring home to you as a critic of the BJP, as someone who works with the opposition?
The message is A, that you have to, A, you cannot be complacent. B, you need a broader caste coalition. You know, Dalit voter is one thing, but BC voter, backward caste voters, need to be very specifically targeted. Rahul Gandhi talks about caste census, which is fine, which is going to be an issue. No one can deny that. But just speaking about caste census by itself does not mobilize backward communities. Backward castes do not have a uniform politics cutting across states. You have to individually target them. You have to individually mobilize those communities. And that is where the opposition will have to spend enormous energy. Having farmers move, supporting farmers movement is not enough. That gets you only a dominant peasant communities. And speaking about caste census is not enough. That gets you a broad, general, abstract support. Converting that specific support of communities, which are farming communities, which are backward communities, is a political task that remains to be undertaken.
Okay, Yogendraji, thank you. We look forward later in the week maybe to talking to you and Yashwant together. That would be make for a very interesting conversation. I know you're very busy today and much in demand, and so is Yashwant. So we let you go now. Thank you so much. Yashwant, welcome. Yogendraji was just doing a kind of mea culpa. He was saying he got it wrong. He didn't read the undercurrent. Abhi Haryana se shuru karte hain. We'll come to JNK right after that. Uh, what do you make of this? Because once again, the focus will be on the exit polls missing this. Not just the exit polls, to be fair, journalists missing this, politicians missing this. I think even the BJP themselves probably did not expect this. How do you read what has happened in Haryana, Yashwant? Yashwant, I can't hear you.
Yeah. So, Barkha, few pointers on the findings that we were discussing the other day on the exit polls. One thing that we said that BJP's vote share is not going down. In fact, that is adding up. That was the finding of the exit poll, that Congress is getting a huge upswing by virtue of all the other parties getting decimated, particularly the JJP, and they are gaining almost like 12, 13, 14% upswing, which is ahead of the BJP as far as the vote share is concerned, and they are ahead of the BJP right now as far as the vote share is concerned, as we are talking. Now the question is, when there is a emotion for change, but it would have been even more trickier situation, Barkha, had the result would be the other way around. Say Congress as a majority and BJP as a non-majority. My problem with that mandate would have been how to explain it in terms of pro or anti-incumbency. Because a party which is in 10 years in power and increasing its vote share, would that be have treated anti-incumbent verdict just because their seat share would have been lower than the previous last time? So those kind of complications were there even while we are analyzing the exit poll data. Vote to seat conversion is always a tricky affair, and I it's not a mere culpa, but I always said that that's a handicap. A party which is getting more vote ideally should be getting more seats. What's the big deal? But that 2 plus 2 is not 4 in first past the post system. That's the problem. Having said that, I also believe that this is beyond data. Beyond data, when I say, that is like in the data, you can only capture the emotion to change. You can only capture what kind of jump the main opposition party is making, what kind of consolidation of the opposition voters in one party's favor is happening. But when there is a kind of a self-goal at organizational level, that is something which data cannot really point you out. For example, you remember when we were doing the Lok Sabha election, post-election Uttar Pradesh analysis, and we said that this doesn't make any sense. What happened in Uttar Pradesh has all the writings of internal sabotage or infighting or whatever way you want to understand that. But like here, what I believe what has happened is that Mr. Hooda, for example, Mr. Hooda, everybody said to me, yes, there is a probability of Congress getting huge swing and winning this election. But Mr. Hooda just wants to ensure that the number is not too comfortable for the Congress so that he is not controlled by the central leadership. Just like precisely the line which we used in Uttar Pradesh election, 100 ग्राम काटने के चक्कर में किलो भर काट लिया. That is precisely what happened has happened in Haryana for the Congress. In order to do micromanagement, in order to do a controlled detonation, Barkha, this has gone out of hand for it. There is nothing called controlled detonation as far as micromanagement is concerned. You know, there is something where, being smart is a good thing in politics. Being over smart backfires. And I guess this is what has happened. Also, to bring to your notice, Barkha, Aam Aadmi Party has, as we are talking on the Election Commission website, Aam Aadmi Party has polled about 2% votes. Now, Aam Aadmi Party and Congress, they worked together in Lok Sabha and they actually got more votes than the BJP. Now, these 2%, when we do the micro analysis, I am absolutely dead sure would be thing which would underline that a clear-cut majority and like that. Apart, I'm not even going into the Kumari Sailaja not being accommodated and I'm not even going into that. I'm talking about the clear, plain thing that Rahul Gandhi said we should be having an Aam Aadmi Party alliance. Aam Aadmi Party started with 20 and eventually they were okay with 7, but and even 5. But Mr. Huda's insistent that those 5 seats we are going to decide, while all Aam Aadmi Party was insisting on that we want the winnable seats. We shall decide the seats. So I think something in all these micromanagement went wrong. And that micromanagement, which the BJP gets benefited from their organization, from their RSS cadre and everything, time and again, Barkha, we have seen Congress giving a good victory away just because of the organizational situation and BJP winning just because of the organization. You remember Madhya Pradesh, what happened? This is the second one coming out.
Yeah. Can I ask you though, I was interviewing Dipinder Huda and I asked him this question. I said कि ये rumor चल रहा है कि आप लोग जीत तो चाहते हैं पर इतनी बड़ी जीत नहीं कि आपका अपना leverage खत्म हो जाए. And he said, obviously he laughed it off and he said, कौन नेता कम जीत चाहेगा? But otherwise, Dipinder is very cautious. Then there was Kumari Sailaja very openly talking about being hurt, being a contender, the infighting. What in the end cost the Congress? Was it Yogendra Yadav argued that people started thinking ये एक जाति और एक परिवार की domination होगी, हमें नहीं चाहिए. Do you think it was that? Do you think it was the Dalit vote as reflected in Sailaja's disquiet? Do you think it was something else? What do you think it was? Because your own survey, if I'm not wrong, did see Huda as the most popular choice for chief minister. I think we had that slide also somewhere. So what do you think happened, Yashwant?
Barkha, it has everything to do with overconfidence, complacence, and may I say, without any, no, it should not be taken as any comment on any analyst as such, but misreading or over-analyzing the 24 verdict. Barkha, after the 24 Lok Sabha elections, when we were discussing, I did say this more often than once that, this result of Uttar Pradesh, result of Rajasthan, where BJP polled 10% more votes than the Congress and is still managing to get only the equal seats, this is more of an infighting in sabotage and those kind of issues. Now add those 35 seats to BJP's tally and you will see the BJP's number beyond majority and NDA sitting at 325, 330 seats. I guess that what happened because of BJP's infighting in UP and Rajasthan and its impact on the BJP's number and NDA's number, many of my opposition friends and their analysts, they over-analyzed it and they got carried away. They analyzed it, वही same पुराना चीज, Kisaan, Pehelwan, and Jawan. While Jawan's question was like BJP won 5 out of 5 in Uttarakhand, 4 out of 4 in Himachal. Kisaan, they won hands down in so many of the rural states. So what I was simply trying to say that I understand that BJP malfunctioned in 2 states, and yes, the numbers went wrong for them. They did not get the kind of numbers which they were expecting. That's fine. But what were the signs of the opposition revival as everybody was analyzing, particularly the Congress revival? Did we misread those signs? Were the Congress sympathizers and analysts a bit overtly gung-ho on that revival. And that question will be asked again. Even though Congress became the number one party as far as the vote share is concerned, as we are of almost in favor.
Yashwant, I don't know. Yashwant, can you rejoin? Can Yashwant rejoin? I'm sure Yashwant will reconnect with us. That signal was really bad. But like Yogendra Yadav, he was identifying one main factor that he thinks may have gone wrong for the Congress campaign, and that was a kind of overprojection of the Huda family of Bhupinder Huda and his son. Both he and Yogendra Yadav have made the argument that voters or particularly non-Jat voters may have looked at the Huda family as and being so powerful in Haryana as being reflective of a government that would be of one family and one caste. While we're waiting for Yashwant, let's bring up some graphics. I can go through some numbers. Why don't we do that? Let's look at the Haryana numbers. Could I have the Haryana graphics on the screen? Now, here's what we do know. We know that the results that we're seeing in the state elections of Haryana and Jammu and Kashmir have defied what the pollsters said. In Haryana, the BJP is all set to form the government for the third time, defying all kinds of forecasts. Yashwant Deshmukh and Yogendra Yadav were just listing the possible reasons for that. I can see Mr. Deshmukh at the back end. We can probably bring him on. We just lost him right there. Hopefully the connection will be a bit better. Okay, Yashwant, you have terrible connection, but let's try and at least get some points from what you were saying.
I'm sorry because I'm using my phone, Barkha, somehow.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm using my phone. If it's still having problem, I will try to see some system is there, but I am just outside the studio in a corner, so I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
I hope you are getting my voice now.
Yeah. Go ahead, Yashwant. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I was just trying to say that, the truth is somewhere in between a complete wholesome revival of the Congress and complete debacle of the opposition in that way. The thing is, there were signs of revival of Congress, but just about signs. Congress had to work over and above that in order to ensure that those signs are not, they do not mislead them in their organizational capacities. They do not let internal factionalism take over public's emotion for change, in that way. I think Congress missed and that I won't say even missed, they overplayed that kind of micromanagement in their personal favor rather than the organizational favor. If the Congress would have given, say, even 5-7 seats to Aam Aadmi Party, those 2% would have made all the difference probably. So I think we have to seriously think if we overanalyzed or somehow misinterpreted the Lok Sabha election results in some way, and public's mood is difficult to, in any case, understand, and public perception is very difficult thing to decode, particularly in the election matters, in all said and done.
Yeah.
But complacency is something which did the Congress in. Overconfidence, complacency, and the personal micromanagement for the personal gains. If that is the thing, this is where everything went south.
I was asking you before we lost you that how do you explain the fact that your own polls did show Mr. Huda Senior as the most popular, perhaps the most also known, recall value bhi unhi ki sabse zyada hai, choice for chief minister, and ML Khattar was really at the bottom of that. He didn't even figure in your top 4 choices, for example, right? So then how do we, it's थोड़ा सा contradiction लगता है कि हुडा का कार्ड overplay हो गया, बाकी लोगों को ठीक नहीं लगा, but Huda is the most popular choice for chief minister. How do we understand this seeming contradiction?
Well, both the things are correct, Barkha. If you look into the 30.8 of Huda Senior and 9% of Huda Junior, you are looking at the precise Congress vote share of 40.5%, which Election Commission is showing right now. But as I said, Kumari Selja, even if it's 4.9%, it mattered. These 1%, 2% Aam Aadmi Party matters. It's a question of magnanimity. It's a question of how serious player you are. You see, the problem, I think, is from the both ends, regional leadership as well as the central leadership. The central leadership probably could not make Mr. Huda make comfortable. Listen, even if we win 70 seats, you are going to be the chief minister. Don't do it. Number one. Number two, Mr. Huda could not became magnanimous enough to offer enough space for Kumari Selja and everybody else or Aam Aadmi Party that, okay, let's win first and then decide on rest of the things later. Even if Congress would have won 70 seats and Mr. Huda's supporters would have been 50 out of 70, he would have been chief minister. So I think these things have hurt Congress really bad. And these things have hurt even BJP in the Lok Sabha election in Rajasthan and in UP. We have seen that BJP probably is lucky in a way, luckiest party in India at this point of time, I would say, that even after those internal squabbles and other things, their mother organization at the end of the day remains there as the mother organization. You know,
Right.
वो माँ की तरह खड़े रहते हैं कि कितने भी नाराज हो माँ तो माँ ही होती है. I think they are lucky. I think they are just plain lucky on that. And they know because I was just sitting and talking to the reporters from Haryana and people over there, and they did say that one big difference between the Lok Sabha and current one is this time we could see the RSS guys on the ground, which was not there in the Lok Sabha election, be it Jammu, be it Himachal. And if that is the case, I think the Lok Sabha results were kind of a reminder to RSS and BJP leadership both that, you know, those kind of anger and bitterness only pulls their tally and the numbers down, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they are quick learners, Barkha. They are very quick learners, and I think that kind of learning has saved their day. And not only the day, this changes, Barkha, everything. The narrative changes. The assembly election narrative for Maharashtra is going to change now, which
So
was a given.
that was going to be my next question. That had the BJP lost Haryana, we would have seen a lot of analysis on Modi's brand after he slipped below a majority in the Lok Sabha. Also because Mr. Modi, the Prime Minister, did not campaign as actively, 4 rallies in this time to 10 in Haryana. Now that the BJP is going to form the next government for the 3rd term, you say this changes everything, the momentum, the morale for the upcoming assembly elections, but also what does it do to the debate around the Modi brand? Because it's not clear how it played out on the ground, because he was more muted than normal in terms of his participation.
Exactly. You are absolutely right. So more than the Modi brand or Modi's involvement, I think BJP managed to pull the sock and managed to, tell Congress that, okay, even as an organizational backbench, we can contest and win the election. This is something which happened in Madhya Pradesh, so it is not a fluke. We know happened in Madhya Pradesh, we know happened in Chhattisgarh. Now we see it is happening all said and done in Haryana. This has happened in Jammu, where in spite and despite of so many senior people being changed the tickets, and organization had a fair day in selection of the candidates in Jammu, and that has pulled district for them. So I think for Maharashtra, first of all, the narrative changes, because the Congress was going overtly aggressive after the Lok Sabha elections. And the first reaction today that amused me a lot was not from the BJP, giving an indirect swap to Congress. It was Uddhav Thackeray's Sena, basically literally saying that you cannot win your own backyard, and you are talking about giving a chief minister face in Maharashtra. So Congress's own capacity to negotiate the seats and other thing with this is going to be in trouble. Their own way of saying that we are the biggest party, we are going to be the biggest party, and we can give the chief minister, that is going to be debated and questioned all over again. Having said that, not just about Haryana, I think what Congress has missed the bus in Delhi now. If they would have been magnanimous enough to give 7-8 seats to Aam Aadmi Party in Haryana, Barkha, they would have asked for 10-15 seats in Delhi. Now that Aam Aadmi Party has seen that, they are not going to be accommodating Congress for any reason whatsoever. So that entire narrative of India alliance going as a cohesive unit, one unit and everything, with Haryana election, I mean, we all say that a week is a long time. Forget about week. Even 2 hours is a long time in politics. Those 2 hours when the trends change this morning, that changed the entire narrative in our studios, in the discussions, and in the public mind as well. I think from the verge of being eliminated in Maharashtra, today I can say that Haryana is going to help BJP to get back in the race. That they are going to say, smell the blood, and okay, this is something which is doable, we can do, and they are going to go for it. And that's gonna be an interesting one.
Now let's switch our attention. As you remind us very interestingly that the first swipe came not from the BJP, but from the Uddhav Sena. Let's turn our attention though to J&K. Very different implications. It doesn't have the same impact on domestic politics, but it is a very historic election, and one of Modi's biggest decisions in a way has been the backdrop of this election, which is the abrogation of 370. Now, how do you see the very comfortable victory that the National Conference and the Congress, and it has to be said more than the Congress, the National Conference has established for itself?
Well, Barkha, we know that there are 43 seats in Jammu, out of which 16 are actually Muslim majority, even in Jammu, as we call, significant Muslim population. So if you look into the Jammu seats only from the Hindu angle, BJP has actually managed to win almost like 100% out there. 28 out of 29 or 30, whichever was at stake as far as the seats of Hindu representation is concerned. So I think along with Haryana, BJP has got the bragging rights today that we did away 370, and see those who are suffering from 370, they have voted for us. And those who are basically on the other side of the idea of 370 getting away, they have polled for National Conference. Fair enough. It's a democracy, that's fine. Question is, when we were looking into the details of National Congress plus Congress numbers, the question of Mufti Muhammad Saeed, when he said that I could not take Congress along because it did not have even a single Hindu face in among the MLAs. And the question is pertinent today because last I checked, the 5 seats where Congress was leading, it was not a single Hindu face out there. In fact, in the National Conference agenda of seats, fortunately for them, there are 2 Hindus winning on National Conference ticket. So at least National Congress can still say that we also hold some mandate from Jammu. It's not that BJP has won the complete Jammu thing, And thank God for that, because I was fearing that if this will become a Valley-only government, Muslim-only government, then the deep divide of Jammu and Kashmir, that fault line is not going to be healed further, in that way. At some point of time, in order to heal those fault lines, Barkha, me and you both know that those warring factions, those on the complete 2 poles of the spectrum, they need to come and form a unity government at some point of time. But at least for now, I am happy that NC's 2 Hindu MLAs candidates are leading. I hope they win. I hope they get in good enough ministry and face responsibility. And this is and Jammu gets fair share of power in this government.
But before we come to this philosophical idea of a unity government in J&K, Umar Abdullah has been very categorical that he will not ally with the BJP. I asked him this on record. He believes that one of the reasons that PDP has got decimated is because of its previous alliance. One of the reasons, previous alliance with the BJP. Now, what I'm trying to understand in this election is that you have an entire region. Yes, NC has 1 or 2 seats, so it's not a pure Hindu-Muslim divide, but it's a very, very strong regional divide. And since they have won comfortably, I asked Omar, do you want to be chief minister? He said, no, I don't have any such ambitions. I said, what is your ambition? He said, to turn the clock back on 5th August 2019, i.e. 370. Now, what I'm curious to know is, how much that re-enters the public debate, and what happens? How does the Modi government handle it?
I think 370 is a thing of the past, Barkha, honestly. Reason being that when the exit poll data, when we asked about that, it was not the number one issue neither in Jammu nor in Kashmir Valley. The issues were bread and butter, unemployment, and other things, which were pretty much like Haryana. Yes, there was a significant chunk, I would say about 20 to 30%, which still said that 370 debate matters. But then that 20 to 30% had a polarizing view. Like, those who said it matters in Jammu, they voted for the BJP. Those who said it matters in the Valley, they voted for National Conference. So that kind of polarization of, say, 25% on each end of the spectrum there, which said that, okay, 370 is a thing of the past, and for us it is important to see the issue of unemployment, issue of other things, inflation, price rise, and everything that comes in. Now, Omar Abdullah rightly said to you, he would not dare to do the BJP experiment looking at the PDP numbers on the screen. But at the same time, Barkha, I also believe that people may polarize, people may give that verdict, but in a long-term peace solution, peace brokering, peace process, whichever way we look at it, it is the leaders who have to take the brave step, and those steps is not something which only have to be taken by Omar. It has to be taken by everybody who is involved. You know, Otherwise, if this government formation sends a message that this is a Valley only, Muslim only government, that kind of gesturing is done, then we are only going to see the fault lines getting deepened further rather than getting healed.
Yeah. Final question. One big message from both of these states, very different states, apples and oranges. But, what is the takeaway? Haryana, you said, changes everything. J&K, different set of factors. Omar Abdullah is going to have to cooperate with the center. It's a sensitive state. It's a border state. It has national security issues. The foreign minister is headed to Pakistan. We've seen, there's the issue of terrorism. There are all kinds of other issues. He's going to have to find a way to open a channel of communication with the Modi government, over, whether he likes to or not. What are the messages from both of these verdicts?
I think one line which I am observing, not just in these two verdicts, but it's now a pretty national phenomena, is further bipolarization of the states into two political lines. Sometimes anti-BJP, sometimes anti-Congress, whichever way, on the line that you can pick. And the others and the splinter groups and the regional names are getting squeezed out in this process. I'm not saying that regionals are not important. They are important. After all, National Conference is a regional party. But whomsoever is pretty important in that particular state or region, the process of bipolarization is going on. And in those processes, the spoilers, vote katwa as we call in UP Bihar ki politics, those spoilers are no more getting space. And this is a process which is gaining momentum with each election that we are going in. Say, for example, in Haryana, last time the others polled almost like 40% votes in Haryana. This time their number is getting below 20%. BJP and Congress together polled hardly about 60% last time. This time these two parties have polled almost like 80% plus. So this matters. And from the perspective of democratic stability, yeah, I know some of the friends see this as a demise of the federalism, but I don't see it, because what I am saying, it is not a bipolarization between BJP and the Congress or the national parties. It is a polarization of the two fronts. Sometimes Congress is leading that front, sometimes the regional party, like National Conference, is leading that front. Congress is a secondary player. But people do not like to waste their vote anymore. I think people are giving much more clear and sound mandate, and people are giving positive mandate. I've been working on that book, which is now coming out on the pro-incumbency emotions, that this century is less about anti-incumbency and more about pro-incumbency, in a way that how leaders can and are doing or showing remarkable ways of delivery of governance, or making their own vote bank count for them, using multiple tools and things. I mean, there are so many case studies, but gone are the days, Barkha, of the default anti-incumbent verdict. When you would do nothing, yet a default victory would come your way just because you happen to be opposition. I think those days are gone, and a lot to learn from that, not just for the politicians, but I think for journalists and pollsters, everybody alike. Public has changed, public are viewing, perceptions have their own way of finding their way to finding their voice at the polling booth, and there is so much to learn from all of this.
And I think the most, even though it sometimes destabilizes our forecasts, the most brilliant thing about democracy is how people can just surprise you. They can humble you. They can surprise you.
They humble us.
They
humble us. You can always count on the common man to humble down everybody under the sun. So that is the beauty of this democracy, and that's what makes us smile even after getting it wrong, Barkha. You get humble, but and that's why you enjoy it. Okay, this is what happened. Oh my God, this is what they meant when they was telling this me this particular thing, and that is, you scratch your head and then you get up and say, okay, next is the election is coming. We have to learn and move ahead.
That's exactly right. Thank you, Yashwant. Always a pleasure.
Thank you,
and again, it's very nice to talk to you, because you're always very open about any mistakes that you make, and any learnings that you get. And that's the beauty, as we all just said, we all make mistakes, and the people have the last laugh, and it should always be that way in a democracy. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Always a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Bye, Yashwant. All right, and we are going to, at this point, take a break. We will be back at 6 p.m. with analysis of these two dramatic results. Just when you think that, you can forecast it all, ye to hame pata hai, ye hoga, wo aisa kuch nahi hota hai. So a humbling moment for everybody here. 6 p.m. we'll see you to analyze what we can learn about politics from both the Jammu and Kashmir and the Haryana results. Thank you for staying with us this whole morning, half the day now, and see you soon. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.